Do whatever you want, bro. We about to go live now. I don't care what you do. Hey, everybody, it's DJ Gatsby Show. We're going to start real quick with my logo, man. Here we go. All right, it's DJ Gatsby, the DJ Gatsby Show with my guest, author Naim Cash in the building, man.
Good afternoon, everyone. What's up, my brother?
How you doing, man? Welcome to the DJ Gatsby Show. I'm your host, DJ Gatsby, President, CEO of WB Media Group. We're back on the air. Been off for a little while. I've been doing the podcast, the Black Business Entrepreneur Podcast, but we're actually back online with the DJ Gatsby Show, one of the two shows that we have streaming, Facebook and YouTube Live, along with iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Audible. Today, my guest is author George Naim, author, music composer, entertainer, George Naim Cash in the building. Cash, what's up, man?
How you doing? How you doing, Gatsby? I'm glad you just added some of my other creds because I noticed that people will go on the market with everything that they do. So thank you for that. I'm not a
I want to set the table straight, man. We're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. But big shout out to everybody who's been following me and the W Media Group family. We've been in this game for a while. Started back in like 2010, 2011, back in Maryland at the College of Southern Maryland campus in a TV studio with the public access TV show.
I remember.
Today again with author George Naim Cash. We're going to get right to it. Cash, man, let them know who you are, where you're from, and what is it that you do, man?
Well, like he said, I'm George Naim Nuruddin Cash. I'm a writer. I have a couple of books out there right now. So basically they're biographies. I'm working currently on a fiction novel, but Gatsby's been my publicist for a while now. We've done a couple of book tours, and it's good to be back and rejuvenizing, if that's a word. The book. I mean, because books don't die; they just get republished.
Yeah. Well, he's saying that right. He's one of the authors here at WBMG Publishing. The first book that he published was The Good and the Bad. I think it was at 14, 15, 16. We'll get the dates right as we go. Today we got a special topic. We want to talk about his prison life series. He's written 3 books based on his time in prison, The Prison Life, The Yard, and Sounds of Sing Sing. We're going to get through all of those. But first of all, I want to acknowledge the fact that, you know, who he is and why we writing this prison book series and why we're doing the show. Convicted felon, correct me. What were the charges? You're gonna you've been in the penal system for a few times. What were the charges, man? When you first got your foot wet, man, what was the first charge? What was the first bid you did, man?
I was 20 years old, turning 21, and my first bid was at the top of the food chain, bank robbery.
Okay, that's right. Bank robbery, Rockland County, New York. I believe that was Harris or somewhere like that.
Yeah, 1979 was a big bank robbing boom across America, but New York had its place at the table with that, and I joined in, young, dumb, and I'm not going to say the third thing.
All right, listen, it is what it is, man. We're not bragging about it, but we're going to show that there is life after incarceration. That's life after prison, and the mistakes that we make as young men. And he lived to tell the story about it in those 3 books. Second bid, what was that for, man? And the first bid, you said a bank robbery. That's a felony. That's a big time charge, man. How much time did you do, and what prisons did you go through at that time?
I ended up with 3 to 8 as a plea bargain type thing because my co-conspirators were already captured and singing in the mic. I did a 3 to 9 for that, actually did 4. And that's where a lot of what comes from the books we are going to talk about came from, because it was a shock to me what prison was really like. I've seen my share of prison movies, and trust me when I tell you, prison movies and real prison don't even meet on the same intersection.
All right. So the crime took place in Rockland County. That's why you got your deal. We're not going to talk about how you.
There is a little backstory. There is a little backstory with that date that I actually did that bank, because New York very rarely gets hurricanes, and we had what was one of the first hurricanes that I ever lived through, and it was called Hurricane either David or Hugo. Because I've been through two hurricanes. Hugo was in South Carolina. I believe it was Hurricane David. And the day after, the county was so smashed and in disarray with a lot of blackouts and all of that. And I'm not going to act like I wasn't already roaming the earth as a kind of a stick-up kid, but that opened up an opportunity. It seems like even though things were blacked out, the banks were open, even if it looked closed from inside. So that's a brief synopsis of how I picked bank.
Yeah, we not. I knew you at the time. We were good friends, hanging out, partying, DJing together. We were very well known and very busy as DJs and entertainers in the hood at that time. But real quickly, the bank robbery is not where it started. You had actually been dabbling in other activities that involve gunplays and robberies and things like that nature. And I think the bank robbery was a culmination of the little money you was getting. You said, the whole story is, the money's out there, you got to go and get it. And
that type of thing.
A conversation I had with you before.
I didn't get my feet wet with the bank robbery, but it just was a natural progression. Yeah. But if people were to read some of the material, they'll kind of see what put that battery in my back, as they say. Yeah. It was a battery put in my back, and I wasn't really interested in robbing. I was kind of pissed off about something else that was happening in my life musically.
I remember something you had told me when somebody asked you a question is why rob the bank? And it was because that's where the money's at, so to speak, man.
Well, I used that because I actually went to college right out of high school, and I took psychology, and we learned things about reacting to certain things, and it was a psychology class, but I used that philosophy in robbery. So when you get somebody in the deer in the headlights moment, that's what it's all about. But I don't really hope we're gonna teach people how to follow.
We're not going down that path. We're not going down that road, man. Listen, man. We strategically planned this conversation with certain topics that we want to talk about specifically, because we're talking about the penal system, criminal justice system. We're talking about jails and prisons. You're writing about stories and incidents that took place. That's why my story, I wanted to follow you doing the sentencing for the bank robbery. You were arrested in Rockland County. Obviously, you were in Rockland County jail at some point.
Yeah. Yes.
Rockland County jail. Where were you transferred to first after leaving Rockland County jail?
This coincides with the books we are going to talk about, because my first stop after county jail was the big nationwide known penitentiary, second to Alcatraz only, was Sing Sing.
Sing Sing prison, Austin in New York. Sing Sing, everybody knows it. And that had to be a shock to the system. You with the big boys now. There ain't, you got murderers, rapists, killers, kidnappers, all kinds of worst of the worst in New York City. Everybody comes through Sing Sing. And we're going to talk about Sing Sing a little bit. I think the prison life itself is going to take place. Some of it in Sing Sing. But I just want to give them a little back history. All right, so you do Sing Sing. You don't say it's Sing Sing, though. Because I went to
if you're not going to do time for violating, that's these days. Back in the past, serious criminals did their whole time in Sing Sing. Now it's almost like what's called a way station, where you get classified to where you're gonna, because there's some serious prisons further up New York State. So yeah, that was just a processing place, but so much hit my senses is the word you use, and I like that word because the sounds of Sing Sing, the book I wrote, came from reminiscing over that was a thing, the things you hear in prison when you're locked in that cell.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the sounds of Sing Sing. All right, so you go Rockland County, you do the bank robbery. You're apprehended. You go through Rockland County jail. First stop is Sing Sing prison, but from Sing Sing, you were actually transferred again. I'm just trying to get to the last place that you ended up at. So you leave Sing Sing, and where do you go then?
Well, here's where it gets a little buffetish, if I can use that word, because at the time that I did what I did, prisons were completely full, and they were negotiating with the governor of New York and other folks to see who could be let out because there was no bed space for hardened criminals. So I've moved around a lot, but my next step was uh, Comstock, a maximum prison, but they had a section where you get classified, your head gets shaved, all of the things you got to go through to prepare you to go to population. This was just transit. That's what they call it when you're not classified yet to where you're going. And what kind of crime you did determines what kind of prison you're going. So bank robbery is a violent crime. So obviously I was going to go to violent prisons.
All right, so Comstock is where you went. I don't mean to cut you off. Comstock is where you go. Cat said,
we weren't in population yet. So reading Good and the Bad and Sounds of Sing Sing in the Yard, all of these things come into play because different prisons motivated different books in me.
Okay, we're going to get to the books based on the writing of the books. I'm just trying to get a trail of the penal system in the Department of Corrections in New York State for that bank robbery. So County Jail, Sing Sing, Comstock. Take us further. Where else did you go?
Once I got my classification number, I was designated a prison where I was going to do the time, and it turned out that was a prison called Green State Correctional, and that's also a maximum security. So there was no way I was going to get around being classified max. Bank robbery is only second to murder.
Okay, all right. Listen, man, we could talk about the charges. Where you went. I get that part. I'm just trying to get through that so we can get to the meat of the interview, which is about the books. But I want a little history, specifically to tell the viewers. You've been through the prison system. You visited numerous prisons. So again, County Jail, Sing Sing, Comstock,
and then Green Haven.
Green Haven?
Green Haven is the name of the prison I actually did my bid in.
All right, so Green Haven. And that's where you did the bid until you were released on parole or work release or whatever happened. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to set that scenario up. Somebody say, okay, he's here to talk about prison life. He's here to talk about activities in prison. You went through the system. You hit 3 maximum security prisons on the way home before you got.
Trying to get to my permanent lockup assignment. Yes, you have to go through all of those different things. And each time I got transferred, that was a new dynamic with that particular prison. So you can't lower your shields anywhere in this conversation, actually.
Yeah, well, I can see actually how the level of intensity changes from prison to prison because you obviously got to get yourself reacclimated. Things are just not the same everywhere you go. We've had these conversations. You gotta make a name for yourself. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what you're doing. You're just a number two in the system. But with the population, things are totally different. Once again, everybody, it's DJ Gatsby. It's the DJ Gatsby Show. We're here with author, entertainer, and convicted Naim Cash. We're going to keep getting to that point, man, because we want to speak to the authenticity of the conversation. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I've been up north. I did jails and did this." They didn't elaborate. This is a chance. And at the end, we're going to talk about life after prison, life after those charges, and that you live to write the book about it. All right, so you do the bank robbery, you do the time, you come back home. That's not it for you.
I
ended up getting charges again, and let's talk about the second bit.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I learned a new word. Instead of saying second bid, I learned a new word called recidivism. And I vowed that I wouldn't be part of that. Recidivism means somebody that repeatedly goes to prison. Okay. I thought that would never be me after the future shock that I had with going to prison the first time. Turns out, nope, I had created a life of crime because I actually went to the graduate school for crime. I learned more crime while I was in.
I'm going to cut you off. But second bid, what is the charge, and where were you? What did you do? Your time for the second bid. What was the charge, and what did you do? What prison did you end up in during that bid?
Second bid was drug trafficking. and I ended up doing that bid in a place called Clinton Dannemora, which is also known by New Yorkers mostly, but it's also notorious maximum security prison, and it's so far up north that you go up a hill to play basketball on the yard, and if you look over the wall, you can see Whiteface Mountain, which is like kissing cousins to Canada. That's how far up north New York I was.
Yeah, I mean, I visited you on one of your bids in prisons upstate near Canada. What was that one?
You came to
Dinner.
you came to Clinton Dannemora. That's so far. That's an 8-hour ride, no matter how you count it.
I don't know how the team. I don't know how the team. I don't really remember it that good, but I know I did. We did make the truck. Listen, you was our man. We didn't do.
Yeah.
Probably was me and Tad. I don't even remember, man.
You and your brother Taboo, rest in peace to Taboo. Y'all came to see me with a couple of the ladies to one of the prisons just to keep me.
We don't have to mention names.
We're not gonna mention no more names than Taboo. Rest in peace. He's your brother. We all worked together as far as DJing and building our brand back then when there was no such thing as calling it a brand. Not on the lower level that people can just say brand.
Who's in the who's doing what we did, man? You know, legal and illegal money. You know what I mean? Listen, man. If anybody listening to this broadcast knows about those days, it was a struggle. It's not easy to get money as it is now. You know, people get money doing anything, driving their car, DoorDash, Ubers, Lyft, and anything.
All kinds of things.
We want to get back out of that. All right. So I don't know if there's any more bids. But if there was, I think we set the scenario and people understand you have been through the criminal justice system. You did 2 crimes, both felonies, and end up in New York State prisons.
Well, since we're not going to pull any punches, there was a 3rd felony, which is why with recidivism, I wanted people to understand that word, how I proclaimed I wouldn't be one of those. And I actually did 3 bids, and the last one was embezzlement. But because of the lower scale of how much money I took, they didn't call it embezzlement. It's technically a white collar crime, but they turned mine to blue collar. And we can go into that at a later date, how they segregate different races with the same crime and give it a different name, you know. But we can go into that deeper at a later date. We don't get too caught up into that.
All right, no. And that now that crime, what institutions did you visit during that crime? I'm just trying to get the list of the prisons.
Yeah, I understand the question, and being that drug trafficking is related to violent crime, so I did another max bid also because I was still on parole. But that last thing that I did with the embezzlement or playing with numbers or whatever, that's not a violent crime. So I ended up being placed in what's called max B, and anything with a fence around it. Well, back in those days, a fence meant max B. But I've seen some documentaries on some of the most notorious prisons in America, and they have the fence and the wire. It used to be that wall that everybody knows is max.
What was the name of that prison? We're just trying to get the name of the prison.
It was Arthur Hill and like Watertown. There's just so many prisons, and we all know why there's so many now. And we can go into that when you form the question. I'll answer one. But I just can't even remember the name of the prison right now.
So basically, do the 3 felony bids that you did, man. You're looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, or more. I didn't do the count.
Sorry to interrupt you. Mount McGregor was the name of that nonviolent prison.
We're trying to speak to the credibility of your conversation. The credibility of you being able to speak on criminal justice systems, the state of the prisons, things that happen there, because you were actually inmates in those prisons. And thank God you made it through alive, in your right mind. You know, you're back in society. You've been very successful, making a life for yourself after prison. A lot of brothers aren't that fortunate to do that. And now that you sat there and told the history, man, what is the main thing that you feel has changed about your lifestyle since you did your last bit?
Well, great in-depth question, but my mind was stuck on one of the titles that you used, and I've always been against it. The term inmate, I don't like. I don't like inmate because I'm not in an inmate facility. I'm in a prison. So whenever you speak to me, tag me, call me a prisoner. I was a prisoner, not an inmate. Now, I don't know why that's still important to me, but it is. I'm not an inmate. I'm a prisoner. I was a prisoner. Um, um, I was so stuck on that title inmate that part of your question, I can't remember.
All right.
What you
was what is a major difference in your life or mindset since you did the last bid? Remember, so you did 3 bids, you didn't do a 4th. Something changed somewhere during that time. We've discussed things like this before, but you can share with the audience and the viewers. What was that change that took place after your last bid and you came home that helped you not make that mistake again?
First, let me say time. If I was to make it short, time. If you're paying attention, if you're not the person that just wants to be a criminal, then time is what changed me because it gave me time to think, write, decide. Because to me, going back and forth to prison is the same as using drugs. You're not going to stop until you actually want to. And that's what it was with crime with me. But the punishment, the lumps of time that was taken for every decision that I made helped change me.
Okay.
When I first went, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any kids. And a child was born while I was waiting to go up north for the first. So every time you go in, I'm speaking to only those brothers or sisters that repeat going back and forth to prison. You know you're a little bit different every time you come out. It's the decisions that you make, consciously, by the way.
Sure.
Whether or not you're through with trying to do it a certain way. Yeah. So I took my Shahada, and for those who don't know, that's when you proclaim being Muslim. So on my first bid, I studied Islam for 3 years. That opened my eyes to a lot of things, but I didn't totally take to Islam, even though I kept my Muslim name that was given to me, which I honor that. But religion, time, education, because back when I went, you also could go to college. I was in regular college that people on the outside was in. For those who know now that campaigned against why should a prisoner get educated, that no longer exists in prison. You can't go to college in prison anymore. So I did that when it was available. Those other times, it was just me being weak. I'll give it that word.
Okay.
I was weak. I was weak to decide and be disciplined. I chose weakness over discipline.
Okay. All right. So that again, that was it was an open-ended question. I like the way you answered it. You did say the change is mentally, spiritually. You're taking the Shahada to Islam, and you just made a conscious effort. You got family now. You got kids now. The consequences of your decisions end up in years of time away from your family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A lot of people go through different reasons why they do that, but I'm glad we got that out. Once again, everybody, I gotta say it is George Naim Cash, author and entertainer here, just giving you a brief synopsis about his credibility, why he's talking about these books, why he's writing these books, because he actually lived this. This isn't a fiction story. This ain't nothing that made up. It's not that people don't talk about in the streets. This is a brother who's coming out openly, candidly talking about the crimes he did, the punishment that he got, the years of prison, and some of the prisons he went to. Now, fast forward to all of that, man. You went on with your life after that. Me and you still remained friends. You lived in New York. You had 3 kids. Is it 3 kids? You had 3 kids and you got a family.
I got children.
Yeah. You actually go on to pursue your dreams, your hopes and passions, and using the gifts that you have been blessed with musically. You got back into music, which is something that's been a big part of your life early on, same as me. And you subsequently started writing music, composing music. you go on after that to start writing books.
Mm-hmm.
As I became a book publisher, you brought to my attention that, yo, I got books, I write, man. I'm like, what? You write, man? Listen, come on, let's get together. This is something we do. We're working together again. We shared so many things that in common, for different reasons. Some can't be mentioned during this conversation. But this
Hey,
was
we don't have to
actually
mention everything.
this is
Everything doesn't have to be on the table. But you being when you got into that book hustle, and don't mind me calling it that for now.
yeah, get money.
So you got into that book hustle when you was hustling books out of the trunk of your car and all of that. And
Yeah,
then when I finally asked you, because we would always come together periodically in different times for whatever social situation that we were in. And that's when I discovered that you were moving books and all of this stuff. And I discovered through you about YouTube and those kind of things. And I was like, what is this with this book thing?
yeah, man.
And and you said something very profound. You said this is what I'm doing and get in where you fit in. And
Yeah,
I
man.
understood what you meant by that because it was the same with the DJing thing when we were kids. You and your brother were always DJs. I always loved music, and what a lot of people will know if they buy, if they purchase The Good and the Bad. I started out my life as a recording artist under contract with Sugar Hill Records when I was like 15.
Yes,
So
sir.
I was always in the music. I was always in the music and under a professional contract. It didn't go the way we wanted it to. I wasn't in control of that. And that's a backstory as well. But it also uh, comes to bear with my attitude later on because the album didn't come out, which they call EPs now or whatever they call it. My
Yeah,
album didn't come out. I was used and discarded by grown-ups, me, my brother, and a couple of friends. We were all young teenagers. So all of this came to play. But when you came through with this book thing and said, get in where you fit in,
yeah, man.
I guess the natural progression for me was to write because I was always a writer anyway.
Yes.
And that's what you meant. And once I became a writer and you saw how serious I was, then you helped me plug in. So thank you way back there when you did that.
Yeah, listen, it's time and opportunity, man. I had left New York. I moved down to the DC, Maryland area. My life had changed. I was keeping in touch. You actually came and visit me down there. I had went to the College of Southern Maryland, got degrees in digital media arts, radio and television production. We actually came to the TV studio.
Did a tour with you.
Yeah, we did a tour of the TV studio, man. And you were anxious about, yo, what are you doing down here? What's this TV thing, man? How can I be a part of this? What can we do? And at that time, there was really nothing for you to do with that. But
Right.
I was also started the book club and started publishing books. I had published one book. And then when you said, listen, I'm writing a book, I got a book, and I worked with you to finish the book, and I published it. And you were the first brother that I did the publishing company, man. And it's turned into be a very interesting relationship, business relationship, and friendship, man. And
With longevity. With longevity.
gave you an opportunity, man, to explore one of your many talents. With that being said, we're going to shift the narrative and start talking about the books. For those of you who have been following us over the years, you know that George Naim Cash's first book was actually The Good and the Bad. I'm gonna put the shot up here of that.
Mm-hmm.
First book, The Good and the Bad, launched a career. You became
And
an author.
actually, if I may interject this, the other book spun off of The Good and the Bad because I'm actually telling my life story from birth to, I guess, the age of 27.
Yeah.
And those experiences about the prison things that we talked to earlier actually was spawned through the first book. And
Yeah.
you were the one that made it clear to me that there was other material in here that we can subsequently use for other books. So I appreciate that because I didn't know I was doing that. As a writer, I didn't know that's what I was doing,
Well,
telling a story.
we needed more material. We needed other things to talk about. You had talked about your life at one point, but the prison life series of books, which is actually 3 books, was a whole nother side of your life that wasn't an open book. That you could talk about going to prison, you could talk about doing time in prison, but very rarely do you see authors write about what actually takes place in prison in different scenarios. All right. So,
And little, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I was going to say, little do they know, it's the nuances that you are helping me cover through these books
Yeah.
that'll help people see if somebody changed while they were in there. There's so many different things happening to you while you're in prison that will either break you out of the criminal cycle or enhance the criminal cycle or change you in other ways, because things happen to you while you're in there. And the biggest part is you can't get away from it. That's the whole definition of prison. You cannot move. And maximum security means exactly what it says. You require maximum security supervision.
All right. So, with that being said about that, you write the good and the bad. I think you were in the process of writing good and the bad too. And you told me about this book that you were working on, that was just something that you were doing. And I said,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was like, no, let's drop that. Let's drop the book, man. I'm gonna put the book up now. That's it. The Prison Life. Actually, that photo was from some shipments for the book. That's
I actually have some copies just in case anybody that's watching is interested. You can get autographed copies from me or through the DJ Gatsby show. That's just a little plug right there for both of us.
Plug, man. That's what we're here for. Yeah, the Prison Life is available in paperback and on Kindle. Again, as Cash just said, the book can be purchased directly through him. You can inbox him on social media. It also going to be purchased on our website, the www.buywbmg.com. That's www.buywbmg.com for autographed copies for him. That's the good and the bad and the Prison Life. All right, so now that we're talking about the Prison Life, man, you dropped that book, man. It was eye-opening for me. You got raw, uncut, unfiltered stories in that book about situations. But the people who haven't read the book and are here to hear about the book, tell us about the Prison Life, starting with the synopsis on the back of the book.
Prison Life is actually combined with two stories, which is also two separate books that you helped me publish. One is called The Sounds of Sing Sing, and the other one is called The Yard. And both of those are not written for one prison. Sounds of Sing Sing, obviously I was in Sing Sing, and The Yard came from a different maximum security prison. I believe it was Green Haven, when I learned what being on a prison yard really means. So you can ask me your next question, but that's basically it. And we don't want to go too detailed because then it wouldn't be any reason for anybody to purchase the book. But believe me, there are sounds that take place in prison. There are smells that take place in prison. And there are things on a yard that take place in prison that I haven't seen in a realistic way in any movie that I've ever seen. Documentaries come closer to what real prison is. So if you want to know about real prison, first purchase my books. But documentaries will take you down a nasty road. And if they're not in New York prisons, then only I can tell you that, unless somebody else wants to talk about New York prison system.
All right, so I don't have the book with me. Can you read the synopsis on the back of the Prison Life book to give us an idea, an introduction to the book itself?
Okay. Sorry, I bumped my camera, folks. Just getting my reading glasses. I'll be with you momentarily.
Oh, you got to switch the glasses.
Reading glasses. I'm not a youngin'.
There you go. All right, so we're talking about Prison Life. You're going to give us a little synopsis of the book.
Okay, the Prison Life, and I don't know how I'm looking in the screen and trying to read it.
Fine, man. You're looking fine. We're just listening right now.
The Prison Life is something many of us will never experience, and hope and pray that they never will have to. But before convicted felons, their friends and families, or those who have been to prison, this book will shed some light on the realization and the solution that prison inmates encounter, or the situations that they encounter. I'm not going to read the whole back. I just wanted to give a little teaser about that. But the main theme is, it's not what you heard.
Sure.
That's my main point and the message I want to get across to people that have criminals in their family, have somebody that want to put a toe in trying to act like they want to be in about that life. There's different things, and different people that read it can read it for different reasons. But I'm covering everything: how to not go and follow me, because I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and I'm the only one that experienced this because I never held back the thing about how ugly it is once you are on lock.
Okay. Yeah, listen, thanks for that, man. I'm gonna put a copy of the book up just so they can see it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the book cover right there. Prison Life, George Naim Cash. Available in paperback as well as on Amazon Kindle. It's a great read. It's not fiction.
Is it audio yet? Did you make it audio? Did you make it audio?
No, it's not. It's not an audio book yet.
That's something we can consider, I guess.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, we're reintroducing the book. Remember, we just came out in paperback. If you lean a little bit to the left, you can see yourself better in the camera. But we just to the other side.
Well, you have the book up.
There you go, right there. We see. So what we did was we released it in paperback, and we have it on Kindle. The other books in the series are actually on Kindle. But again, the Prison Life, fantastic book, realistic depictions of prison in scenarios, man. This is not a fiction book. This is based on facts, written by someone who actually did the crimes and did the times and lived to come and tell about it and wrote a series of books. So that's it, The Prison Life, George Naim Cash. That's why we're here to talk about that book again. For autographed copies of his first book, The Good and the Bad, as well as the first book in the Prison Life series are available through him. Yo, man, once we did that book, once you wrote that book and we published it, the stories that were in there, we had to elaborate. You had to keep talking about it. I don't have the copies of the books here because they're online, but the Prison Life, where does those stories take place at mainly?
The Sounds of Sing Sing is inside of Prison Life, so that's obviously Sing Sing. Okay. The Yard, if memory serves me correctly, the Yard was based on Green Haven because that's where I did the meat of the bank robbery bid.
So the Prison Life books are talking about your time at Sing Sing Prison and Green Haven. And
Green Haven.
Fascinating stories, man. Fascinating depiction of incidents and scenarios that took place there, man. Once again, it's DJ Gatsby, man. Yo, Cash, I'm loving the interview, man. We going good. Big shout out to everybody that's out there watching, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You're going to also be able to see the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, I think Google Podcast, SoundCloud, and what is that? Audible on
Whoa.
Amazon.
That's very good to hear that you have so many mediums that you rocking from these days. Proud of your way, bro. You came a long way.
Man. You know me, it's all about the distribution, man, of the content that we creating. You've been with me along the way, been on the radio show. Was finally, I didn't remember if you were actually on the streaming services that I'm doing for these shows, but I'm glad I got you on. We have the other show, the Black Entrepreneur Podcast. I got to bring you on there. We talk about your entrepreneurial spirit and what you've done. Now, we've talked about the books that came out, Prison Life and the spinoffs, Sounds of Sing Sing, and The Yard, and, what you've been through. Now, on this side of the fence, man, on this side of the wall, you've been very successful in your personal life. I'm not talking about the books. I'm not talking about the music. You've achieved a lot of the things that you set out to achieve as a young man before you got involved in a life of crime. I know your accomplishments. I know the things that you've done. A lot of people have stereotypes about what happens when brothers go to prison and come out. You seem to be an exception because after the third bid, you didn't go back, and you actually. You relocated, man. What's that? You want to correct me about? I mean, I don't.
No, I was giggling that you said I didn't go back, but I figured 3 was my limit. There's other brothers that's still making a career out of going in and out.
Okay.
3 was my personal limit. I knew I needed to do something different.
Yeah, but I
lost a whole decade. My 20s were spent in prison. And that's usually when a young man is making up his mind what direction he's going to go in life. Well, I squandered my 20s. But like you said, I persevered when I got out, but my mind was made up. My mind was made up. And then I had to get past being too proud to help. Because there's so many programs out here that can guide an ex-con in a different direction. But if you're proud or you're just not through with the gun, so it's either or. My pride was holding me back for a second, but once I started taking advantage of some of the benefits and things that they had to offer, I started being a little bit humble and a little bit more patient and sitting in whatever waiting room I had to wait for them to give me whatever they were going to give me, even if it was just a suggestion. I had to wait a couple of hours to get that suggestion, but I still had to humble myself. So humility is the biggest thing.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I've seen your struggles since you came home. I've seen the drive and determination to remain a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen.
I'm proud of that, right?
But you still, and I'm going to mention this again, you accomplished dreams and goals that everybody has. You've had money, you've had cars, you've done all of those things, but you went through some personal struggles.
Ups and downs.
You ended up on disability.
Mm-hmm.
You made it through that. You subsequently became a homeowner. I want to talk about that. In other words, your re-entry into society as a convicted felon, man, you still had time, created on your side to accomplish those things. And you went about those with the same passion and drive that you did with the gun. Tell us about that whole experience, man, becoming a homeowner, changing your life, relocating from New York, man, and just seeing how the other half lives, man. I know it's very rewarding for you. Tell us about that process, man.
Yeah, it was rewarding, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to at least share a little bit of light on what it takes to break out of a cycle. Let's call it a cycle.
Yeah, okay.
Call it a crime cycle. I had a drug cycle, I had a crime cycle, and like I said, once you make up your mind what you're going to do, I think, my DNA just has that whole keep trying thing in me. No, it depends on what it is, because my siblings, my mom, my dad, they were all accomplishing what they were doing, and I was accomplishing being a criminal. But once I decided to stop being that, I had to be serious, and I take all things serious. So if I have to spend my time, which is the most serious thing to me since I lost so much of it, if I have to spend my time about a thing, then be as hard with that as I was with everything else.
You went all the way in, man. Yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but I know about the struggle with the disability. You helped me with my disability cases that I was trying to do. You instructed me. I'm really talking about that process that led you to be able to accomplish those things that you had always wanted, financially secure. Like I said, mentioned being a homeowner. These are a lot of things that convicted felons, people go through prison, do not have the perseverance or attitude or even the information on how to do that. We can discover that in depth in another time about the process, but you accomplished two things, man, and I was right behind you trying to accomplish those same things. Being a homeowner. When you told me about the idea about buying your home and being in a program, I was like, yo, this brother's getting it. Now you got a checkered past and a checkered history, man, and we got cats been out here all their life on the streets trying to hustle and bustle, couldn't able to do that, man. How proud did that make you when you woke up that day and said, man, listen, you haven't made it, but you have achieved one of your lifelong goals in spite of all you've been through. How did that make you feel, man?
Well, I learned by being an author, you can't just float somebody's name out there. But when I decided to leave South Carolina after the disability became a reality, okay, So in New York with my disability, there was no, I want to speak the way I speak. There was no change in my pocket left over after I would pay whatever I had to pay based on disability. So I had to geographically relocate, and I had to come to terms with that because my children, for the most part, and all my main family was in New York. So how do you leave? Well, I left just like everybody else left. I had to do what was best for me. So the first step was leave New York and all of that, what that implies, because I was raised in New York, so anything can pull you if you're so attached to so many different things. You're an ex-New Yorker yourself. We were raised there. And it's just so much. You have to distance yourself from New York once you make up your mind, I got to try to do this. So I met someone after I got a good, secure job here in the South at the University of South Carolina. I'm always open to talk to people, but I had to get past that pride thing. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Pride was holding me back. Now I'm open to somebody telling me what's going on because things are going on in the world that I'm not up on. And program was one of them. And South Carolina came up with a program, and I was working at the time, and this brother that just always stays on his computer, he was actually my boss when I first went up there. He shared that information with me. So to make a long short, if you find out information and you're trying to better yourself, hear that information and execute.
There you go. There you go. Once again, everybody, you just heard it right there. My man, George Naim Cash. Telling a bit about his story, where he started, some of the twists and turns, and how he's ended up. Not done yet. You still got a lot of talent. That you said you can't sleep until you get the dirt nap. You know how
that's right. That's right.
Your stories, as I told you before, will be very inspirational to a lot of people, man. A lot of brothers who've been through the prison system and came out. I've heard it's like PTSD. It's been like going to war. It's been like, dying and be reborn again. A lot of baggage that comes with that. Self-doubt, just in the way. And you can't never get even footing. So I think your story is very inspirational, man. What advice would you do? And I'm gonna take it all the way back. What advice would you give to a young brothers it's a 3-part question. What about you brothers that are out here living a life of crime right now? It seems like crime's an all-time high, but we had crime back when it was coming up too. But there's murders, there's robberies, there's home break-ins, there's sex and drug trafficking. There's all kinds of crimes being committed out here. Everybody trying to make it. What advice would you give somebody who's stuck in the grips of a life of crime right now? And this
I'm about to answer that question, and I know you're not going to expect the answer. You're not going to expect this. I will not give advice to somebody that's already in crime because they can't hear me. They won't hear me. They're not going to watch. They don't watch podcasts. I was a gunslinger. So the last thing I'm interested in is what somebody's saying over there on TV or whatever. So I can't speak to them because they're already in. And I wouldn't even try to call myself speaking to them. What if they make $50,000 a week? They're not going to be able to hear past that $50,000. You understand?
All right.
But for the brothers and the young brothers out there that's even thinking about it, or you did some penny ante, whatever, you got jail time. Because trust me, jail and prison are 2 separate entities. 2 totally separate entities. Once you become a prisoner, you really done did something. Jail is like you scraped up against something. So you have time to rethink that. One thing I would suggest to them is think about every argument that they have with family members. How can you be right and everybody else is wrong? That was my first awakening when I heard somebody say something, but I don't even want to try to paraphrase, but it's along the lines of how can everybody be wrong except me?
Oh, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
You got to touch on reality.
That's ridiculous. So you're wrong.
You're not comprehending the purpose.
Start with that. And my second thing would be, tell yourself the truth. Even if you have to look in the mirror and talk to yourself. I still look in the mirror and talk to myself. I go over things like I'm on stage and I'm just rehearsing, but I'll look in the mirror and look at myself to see how I look, telling the truth.
Yeah, tell
yourself the truth. Tell yourself the truth.
All right, so I get that part where you said You know, you know that you can't reach people where they're at in some places, and you understand the mentality out there. You all in, or not. And like you said,
Right.
those people, they're probably all in. They're doing what they got to do. They'll come up out of that shit when they get caught, or when the police catch you. In the meantime, man, let me get my money. You got yours now. You're OG. You want to come back and tell somebody? I get it. I understand where you with that respect. Okay, so but to the brothers, my second part of the question was a lot of brothers that are incarcerated in prison now. They watch podcasts. They got phones. They're on computers. They see a lot of things.
Totally.
You had a message. But listen,
That blows my mind.
huh?
That blows my mind that they can actually buy cell phones in the prison. I've seen people with their faces burnt off over skipping their turn on a phone that used to be on the wall. So this is totally fascinating to me about the way prisons are today. But the one thing that stays the same is you're doing time. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you got a phone, fine, but you're still doing time. But that is pretty fascinating. So thanks for mentioning that. So if somebody's on their first bid, and it is a serious one,
yes, sir.
Inventory about how you got there and how you decided to do that crime. And if you got caught, tell yourself that you probably wasn't that good at shit.
Okay. All right. Again, I like the way you said that you respect the fact of people where they are and their ability to listen and comprehend what somebody's saying. So if you know somebody's in a space where they're not trying to hear shit, they're not trying to hear nothing. Like we ain't trying to hear nothing, bro. We ain't trying to hear. You know, so that was the first two questions. The last one is cats that just coming home. Cats that just came home. You know, in these reentry programs, I told you about the reentry programs and the services. You touched upon a little bit. I know a brother up in DC by the name of Eon Williams. He's an author and entertainer. He works with brothers coming home from prison. He wrote a book called Lord and Legends. I always see him online, welcoming brothers home, welcoming brothers back to the community. He's working with programs and services in the DC area to help these brothers, reacclimate themselves to society. There's another brother in New York. I forget the name of his program. I know his dad is Tony Earl, he's a legislator in Rockland. I think it's Tony Earl Jr., who has some type of reentry program or services. I don't really know what they are because I just touch upon them and I see them and I understand the work. I don't think you went through no programs like that. Like you just did this on your own. I don't know if you did any programs or not, but what would you say to brothers that are coming home from these bids or just came home from these bids, man, and trying to get reacclimated or, as you say, re-enter society?
If you have parole or probation attached to your release, first thing is keep those appointments, because they can crush you. If you don't show up, they can send you back if you have what's called a split bid. Split bid is like 6 to 12. They let you out in 6, but you're still doing 6 on the street where you have to answer to somebody. Okay. So the first thing is get your discipline up about showing up to that. We have a thing that we call rock your parole officer to sleep. Now, it's not criminal. It's actually doing what you're told. Because the parole officer will get bored with the fact that you're doing what you're told.
Yeah.
You show up. So you show up to that. You have to really have your mind made up. And it's hard for me, in a way, to speak to your question because everybody has a different mindset. But if we're just going by a template or some kind of a blueprint, the same thing you had to do when you were in prison, which was follow the instructions of those correctional officers and the rules and regulations of that world, bring your ass out and follow the rules and regulations of this world. I hope profanity, I didn't go too deep, but I'm cursing because I get shit off my chest when I say it the real way.
You passionate, man. Same with me. If you're passionate about what you're saying, man, your words are going to flow. But we get it. I hope nobody's offended by the words or the subject matter that we have here.
I apologize to those who are.
And as I told you, my disclaimer that the words and views presented in this conversation may not be those of WB Media Group, LLC. We got to put that out there, man, because I had a few sips in the tongue. But again,
that's the thing. I apologize for laughing, Gatsby, because you're a businessman now, and you've been rubbing elbows, like just like trying to make an escape at certain points. I can't look over you. So the fact that you are not letting yourself be pulled into my
You admitted
Shenanigans.
profanity.
Shenanigans.
You said you use less profanity simply because you can articulate more with the vocabulary that you have. Yes, but once you eliminate profanity from your vocabulary, that's a small percentage of your conversation that you're trying to articulate. So I get it, man. I get
Okay.
it. But back to
Every now and then I'll slip, but I mean no disrespect to anybody that's listening.
we good, man. You made
Okay.
a good point when you said the first thing to anybody that's coming home, if you just came home and you home on work release, you on parole, whatever they call it. Make your appointments, man. Show up on time. You're on work release, get out and come back. You got weekends, get out and come back. That's the first thing that you mentioned, and I like that. I like that. Discipline, follow the rules, man. This shit is not a game. That just had you locked up. You just did time. You ain't nothing out there in the street that you need to miss your parole and probation officers and all that, looking for a job and all of that, man, because you're trying to be back in the hood. Cats in the hood already know what it is. A lot of them done been to the prison and came home. They home, they got jobs, they get cars, they doing good. When you come out, you know, you still need to follow the program, man, to get what you're doing. So I like what you said about that. First and foremost, do that.
It's structure. It's structure, and prison is structure. They count you 7, 8, 10 times a day. I can't remember how many times they count, but that's a structure. You have to be somewhere when that count takes place. You have to be ready to walk out that cell when they say on the chow, which is when you eat. So if you can follow that, and I also practiced this while I was in, because after I came home the first time, I began making children, and so that was something I had to factor in. But I used to practice going to child support court in the mirror. You can't come out your face wrong with whoever it is.
You got to know how to talk to these people
that's trying to help you, because they really are trying to help you, and sometimes they're not. But you have to maintain your self-control in all situations. So that was the beginning of me following instructions, going to the parole officer, and but I still did a little something. I left New York when I wasn't supposed to visit my, and I came back on time to see the parole officer. It got to the point where I just asked him, "Can I relocate?" Because
I remember them conversations, man. We sit there and had the straw. I remember you had the plan. You had the plan in place, and you followed brilliantly. Also, what you said about you know, pretty much you got to work the system. Like the system is there. You're in it now. There's no fight in it. There's no winning. You need to get out of the system. You need to get off that paper. You need to get off parole. You cannot fight those fights. And
that's right.
You had to humble yourself. And we talked about this earlier, how you said, you know, your attitude that changed with dealing with people, specifically people of authority, people in a position to help you, people who you need to listen to or talk to and or deal with in order to achieve what you're trying to do. And you said that you was at a point where you just bite people's head off and just off with your head for whatever it is, and you end up spiting yourself.
Right.
I like that humbleness, man. I like that humbleness, man.
Let me just add that it doesn't come to me easily. So for anybody that think they can't be humble, you talking about the one dude that was not gonna be humble. So stop telling yourself that. Words make you think the way you're gonna act. So stop telling yourself certain things. You can be humble. You was humble when that CEO said lock in, and he didn't even have to close the door. You closed that shit yourself. So don't say you can't do it.
Yeah, and plus it's authority. You know what I mean? People in authority, and I talk to my kids about that, man. Your teacher in school, the police officer, the judge at court. You know, you listen. You can't win fighting them. You will end up doing whatever punishment that comes along with your attitude or whatever comes out of your mouth and the other BS that you put yourself in. I like that humbleness, man. I like that humbleness, and it's good looking, man.
And what will help your humbleness, because people are afraid of this, what I'm about to say also. Change people, places, and things if it's necessary.
Oh, yeah.
I was never going to be free of the past me if I didn't get serious about changing people, places, and things.
I like that. Once again, everybody, it's DJ Gatsby. It's the DJ Gatsby Show. Cash, we didn't hit for an hour, man. It's supposed to be a 30-minute show. We did cover a lot of bases. We talked about the books, man, but we just wanted the viewers to get a better idea who George Naim Cash, where he's from, what he's done, what's inspired him to write the books. He actually lived this shit. It ain't nothing fiction and ain't nothing, might have changed the names and the dates and times to protect the innocent. But the fact is, we keeping it real. We keeping it 100. Yeah, I toted the gun. Yeah, I did the drugs. Yeah, I did time in prison. Yeah, I was in Sing Sing. But now I'm home. I'm a homeowner. I live in the South. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I do what I need to maintain my lifestyle and stay free and out those people's way, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. And
I appreciate you having this platform. This platform is golden to me, and hopefully you'll invite me back, because we pretty much was broad stroking all of the topics. Anytime you want to zero in on anything, like my music is a real thing.
Well, and it helps. I told you specifically that I wanted to talk about prison life, the yard, Sing Sing, your time in prison, simply because you're past it now, and you're past it and faded away into the sunset. You did the crime, did the time, and came out and shined. Like, you've accomplished a lot, man. If you sit down with some brothers who did, like you said, 10 to 15 years in prison, man, it's hard to accomplish anything. Just staying there. So I agree, man, for reinventing yourself, man, and using your talents, man, as a musician, as a composer, as an author. And it may have a career in motivational speaking, man, because of the way you speak to these issues so eloquently. But you still have an edge on the street, like you still that dude. You told me you still know how to handle this and click that and do this, but you don't have to.
But I don't have to. Having knowledge and not deleting your own knowledge is key. I mean, I like the fact that I still have my street edge, because it makes me totally aware when I'm in corporate world, when somebody's trying to shade me or whatever it is they're trying to do.
Yes.
I like the fact that let me just say this, a word that's kryptonite to our community, men and women: submission.
Of course.
Black women hate it. Yes. Men don't really accept it, but the truth is, until you submit to some power that be,
society, man, it's the world you live in, man.
You have to submit to something.
I got my grandson just lost his job. Talking about the people, this and the people. I was like, bro, you're gonna learn early on. I don't give a damn what that boss said. You let him come between you and your paycheck. Now you walking around tough and hard. You want to slap the shit out of him, but now you out of work. You ain't got no job. Like, you ain't got no money. Like, you may not find a job simply because you didn't know how to handle yourself in pressure situations. And I understand that totally, man. You got to get that. There's a lot of angry young black men out here. They in jail. They in the streets. They're on the run. And we know what the society is. We know about the police. We know about the criminal justice systems. We know about the prison populations and how they all in cahoots together to keep us all locked up. And
people can hide behind all of those reasons, which are real. But since we also have another thing in our life called Google, Google submission, and then go deeper with submission, so you can stop feeling a certain way. Because as a man, I don't feel shit. I think this or that. Women are built to feel. Men are built to think. And I think that until you familiarize yourself with the different levels of submission, you don't have to look at it like it's a bad word, but you are going to submit to something and someone. Be in control of what you submit to.
Yeah, good point you're making, man. Put yourself in a position where you don't have to deal with those situations. You're your own boss. You're independent financially, fixed income. You stay out those lanes. You don't put yourself in a position. You know what I mean? And for me personally, God bless you. I done been arrested a couple of times, but I've never been convicted of no crime and did no time in prison. But it's not like I didn't do the shit that could have had me there.
Just didn't get caught, bro. You just didn't get caught.
So now I'm like, I try to stay out of those situations. We go on to what it is. It's doing 75 and a 35 mile an hour will get your ass in trouble. It would get you in dealing with the police. Yeah. So whatever it is, man. Again, Cash, thanks for coming on, man. We're gonna wrap it up, man. A big shout out to my man Herc Swift, who came online. Gave us a shout out there. My man Carlos Vegas, my cousin down there in Tuscaloosa. Appreciate you guys. And a lot of people who tuned in, I couldn't see you because you didn't do comments, but follow DJ Gatsby Show on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Follow my man Arthur George Naim Cash on Facebook, and he's on Instagram. This show is going to be available.
YouTube with my music. You can find music under Naim Cash, and you can go find my music on SoundCloud, George Cash 1, the number 1.
We're gonna talk about the music the next time you come on, man. But you have a lot of opinions on politics, relationships.
I would love to do it regular where it doesn't have to
Talk
do
about
with
all
me.
that, man.
I would love to be on your show, semi-regular, and we can talk about whatever's on the table.
We evolving, man. We just got started. We back up. We back to speed. You can see things are going flow. We got everything's going good. It's just a matter of time and opportunity. And I think we both are at that age in life where we have those. You know what I mean? Where we have
Yeah.
those. But again, before we quit, man, I just want to show a few of the books that we're going to check out. Make sure you check out The Good and the Bad. That's available on paperback through the author, George Naim Cash. Also, check out Prison Life. I pulled this up, man, when you was on tour back I think it was in 2016 with the books with State to State.
That was the Bronx. What do you call that?
I forgot it was in the Bronx. It was a book festival, man.
Book festival.
I was nominated for Publisher of the Year up there, man. It was a great time.
Yeah, and I went with you, so I know about based on affiliating myself with you. So there's so many things that deals with books.
Ubawa Book Festival, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to the lady that does that.
Yeah.
Again, man, The Good in the Life. They're sitting right there, man, packaged and ready to go. Autograph copies. Cash has those available. And again, man, just support the Prison Life book series. Do what you can do, man. And if you've got any of the book, there is all the books. Book 2 is in that slide right there, man. We gotta get that, man.
It's done. I just gotta go ahead and go hammer out the particulars how I want to go with it.
All right, man. Any last words you want to give, man? Family, friends, people that's been supporting you, man, and really inspire you to do what you do, man, and it's appreciation, man. Now it's time to do that, man.
Just a quick hello to everybody that cares about me and everybody that was interested in what we're talking about here. I have plenty of material. I've been on Earth for a little over 6 decades, so I have plenty that I can share with whoever's interested. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope to be back soon. Thank you, Gatsby.
Yeah. All right. Once again, it's DJ Gatsby. You're watching the DJ Gatsby Show. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. And look out for the Black Business Entrepreneur podcast. Again, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Audible, and Google Podcasts. Peace. God bless you. And we'll see you again on the next time.
We out.